Hello, my sweet grandkids. Today I want to talk to you about something extremely important. Your old parents. Yeah, I want you to promise Mama that you will remember that your parents are human. They're not superhuman. They're not infallible, although they would certainly like to be if they could. They will not be calm every minute. They may not make the right decisions every time or handle every situation perfectly. Parenthood doesn't come with a manual. One day you'll understand that. Sometimes a parent leads with fear, sometimes with disappointment. Yes, a parent can be disappointed in you when you make bad choices or even be somewhat angry. But human feelings do not diminish their love for you. And I know they love you. I have seen it in their sacrifices and their keeping of responsibilities. Sometimes they may tell you no. And I know that kind of sometimes is icky. And you may not understand why they tell you no. You may not agree with them, understand why they respond with a no, and you may even get angry with them. Those are all human emotions too. But even when you don't agree with your parents, you still need to show them respect, okay? Mama really wants you to, and you guys usually do, and I'm so proud of you. As children and even as adults, our children don't always see parents as human beings. People with feelings and concerns and worries and problems, and even sometimes understand that we might be fearful or tested or frustrated or just plain exhausted. Try to understand that most of the time your parents have a reason for saying no, even when they can't fully explain to you why they're saying no. And sometimes that reason may have nothing to do with anything other than just a gut feeling. Let me tell you about gut feelings. You have a gut feeling, you need to follow it. When your Uncle Gordo was in high school, he asked if he could spend the night with his cousin one night. Usually that wasn't a problem because we just lived around the corner from each other. They went to the same school, um, and did most everything together. It was not unusual for Uncle G to spend the night with his cousin, even on a school night. After all, my sister was there looking over them, or I was looking over them when they were at my house, so it was not a big deal. But on one particular night, the moment he asked me if he could spend the night with his cousin, I suddenly felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. I mean, I felt sick and I didn't understand why, and so nothing appeared to be wrong. Everything appeared to be okay, and there was no obvious reason for me to need to say no, but something inside me screamed no. So I told him very gently, 'cause moms and dads, we want to be like too. Sometimes it's not possible. So I said, not tonight, son. I'd really like to have you at home tonight. And he wasn't happy about it, but Uncle G showed me the respect to say, okay, Mom, then come on home. I'm sure he didn't understand my decision, and honestly, I didn't fully understand it myself. Most other times him staying the night wasn't a problem for me, but it was that night. The mom that wanted to be liked wanted to allow him to do what he wanted to do, but I listened to that inner voice, that gut feeling, and I said no that night. The next morning on the way to school, his cousin's car went through a fence head on at a decently high rate of speed, and his cousin was critically injured. And the side of the car where Uncle Porto would have been sitting took a big hit. Had your uncle spent the night, he might not have survived that. We might not have him today. When I saw that car and realized what could have happened, what would have happened if I hadn't said no the night before and followed my gut. I became physically ill seeing that car. I literally vomited in the field. The thought of how close we had come to losing him was more than my mother's heart could take. Now, I'm not telling you this story to make you afraid of anything, and I'm not saying your parents will always know exactly what's going to happen. I certainly didn't. But had I not listened to that voice inside my head, the protective instinct that God gives parents at times, I can't even face the thought of it today of what could have happened. It's painful to think about. I'm telling you about all this because sometimes a parent's no comes from love, experience, instinct, or a feeling they can't even put into words. Your parents won't always be right. They will make mistakes. I did. They may lose their patience. I did. They may, misunderstand you. And sometimes they may owe you an apology because they are fallible humans. We are all fallible humans, but they are doing their best to protect, guide, and love you. So when they tell you no, it's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to respectfully ask why. Respectfully. Notice Mama said respect. But whenever you, but whether you understand the answer or you don't, you still need to show respect. Respect is also a form of love. One day you may look back and understand the reasons. And sometimes, like your Uncle Porto, you may discover that the no you didn't like was actually God standing between you and something that you couldn't see. I want you to please treat your parents with love and compassion and grace. Give them grace every day. There's this painful pattern that's going on and it's affecting American families today. Adult children are becoming estranged, not only from their parents, but sometimes from grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and nearly everyone connected to the family. Many times those family members have done nothing. I mean, they have only been loving and giving, but because they have a relationship with the cut-off parent, and they're made to suffer too. And it is suffering. It is heartbreaking for them. Just as it's heartbreaking for the parent who's being cut off. Now, social media may give you some shocking numbers, but we need to be careful with statistics. Reliable research does confirm that family estrangement has become extremely common these days. One national survey found that more than 1 in 4 American adults were estranged from at least one family member. Other figures currently circulating are that, and this is shocking and sad, that 50% of millennials went no contact with family and 60% of Gen Z. That truly is sad. It's the American family. Research also tells us that estrangement rarely affects just two people. When one relationship breaks, the hurt can travel through the entire family. Grandparents lose access to grandchildren. Siblings feel pressured to take sides. The divorce and the arrival of a new spouse or serious partner can sometimes contribute to these divisions. In one survey of estranged mothers, nearly 8 out of 10 believed in another family member. Even the child's other biological parent or romantic partner had influenced the separation. But notice I said believe. A parent and an adult child may have completely different explanations for the estrangement. Parents may point to an ex-spouse or an in-law or a disagreement. Adult children may point to painful childhood experiences, abuse, violence, or just feeling unheard. That's why healing requires honesty from everybody. Notice I said everybody, because if you are feeling unheard, there's a good possibility that so is your parent. Communication has always been key in any type of relationship, and that's especially true when that relationship starts going south. I really feel like communication has become a lost art with the last couple of generations. And I want you guys to learn to communicate openly, effectively, calmly. I want you to learn to do that because you will grow and you will accomplish so much by being able to communicate. Sometimes distance is truly necessary for protection from abuse, violence, addiction. I would never tell you ever to remain in an unsafe situation simply because you were related to somebody. The same holds true in an abusive domestic relationship. Love is never, ever violent. Ever. Never. But you also need to understand something else. Discomfort is not always danger. Disagreement is not automatically abuse. An imperfect parent is not necessarily a toxic parent. Being told no, having rules, or hearing something you don't like does not by itself justify throwing away an entire family. Before you close the door permanently, ask yourself some questions. Have I clearly explained what hurt me? Have I allowed the other person an opportunity to understand and communicate so we might reach a place of mutual understanding, be able to change actions or reactions, and put myself in their shoes truthfully? Notice I said truthfully. Have I stopped to actually see what's true and what might even be outside influence? Am I making this decision for myself, or am I being encouraged to see my entire family through somebody else's eyes? Many times there is conflict or even perceived conflict between two people, but sometimes people only hear one person's version. Instead of bringing everyone together, putting the issue out in the open, and trying to find resolution. When it doesn't happen, one side is shut completely out. A parent always hopes their children, no matter what their age, knows them and knows they would never purposely do anything to hurt them. But sadly, it seems in today's world, understanding someone else's perspective or their feelings no longer seems warranted or valued. And hear Mama well, sweeties. Listening to all sides of a conflict with an open mind and heart is also a form of respect. And what do they say respect is also? A form of love. When you cut off a family member before allowing open communication, you may also cut off every other side of the conflict or understanding. That way, only one version of the story gets told, right? That can also happen with divorced parents, too. And there's a survey about estranged parents that say that more children of divorce have become estranged from one parent by the influence of the other parent now that they're adults. And sometimes one parent can tell a version of the story that makes it appear as though they did their part. Or maybe they tell the adult child that they wanted to be involved but were unfairly excluded. But the complete story may be that they had opportunities to participate, help, and be present, yet repeatedly chose not to put their children's physical and emotional needs ahead of their own wants, feelings, or priorities. I've seen a lot of divorced parents where one parent has a lot of social activities and extracurricular fun, while the other parent actually parents. The parent who thinks of the kids shows up, period. They show up. A parent who thinks of the best for their kids, who thinks about the welfare and the needs of their children, shows up consistently. Sometimes absence gets rewritten as exclusion. A lack of effort gets retold as I wasn't allowed. And years later, the adult child may hear only that version and without taking a hard and honest look at the history, allow the truth to be rewritten. I'm not saying this describes every divorce or every parent. I'm saying that one person's version is not always the whole truth. And that holds true in any kind of relationship. Before judging the parent who stayed, struggled, provided, and carried the daily responsibilities, make sure you understand the complete story. Listen not only to what each person says they wanted to do, but also look honestly at what they actually did. Intentions may sound good, but a child's physical and emotional needs are met through consistent action. The thing is, my sweethearts, we are living in a time when some people believe only their feelings or their opinions matter, or that they're the only ones right. Don't be one of those types of people, because that's not true. And sometimes it's through the disagreement and respectful discussion that we can actually see both sides of a situation and come to a mutual understanding. And sometimes that understanding is to agree to disagree respectfully. Sometimes instead of having an honest conversation, people label another person as toxic or narcissistic. Don't be that person either because that's not truthful behavior. Labels don't resolve conflict. Silence doesn't establish the truth, and refusing to hear another person's side is not the same as setting a healthy boundary. It is not the same at all. Families should respect healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are helpful, but whenever it's safe and possible, we should always leave room for accountability, forgiveness, growth, and reconciliation. Cutting someone off can happen in a moment. And when communication and honesty could have fixed the issue, it's unnecessary. Seriously, it really is. It really is. I've even heard people say, I'll just give it time and then I'll reconnect with my parent. But remember, it's not just you who decides if an estrangement becomes permanent. After enduring that type of hurt, another person may not take the chance of going through it a second time. Also, sweetheart, there's something you need to remember very well. Children are like sponges, and one day you'll be adults with children. Those children soak up what they see adults doing, and in cutting off family members, you may be teaching your own children that if they ever disagree with you, they'll just cut you off. How can you tell them it's wrong? So please, before you do one of the most hurtful things that you can do to a parent who has truly loved and cared for you, show them the respect and compassion of talking it out. Love them that much. And by talking it out, I don't mean telling them what they must do for you while you refuse to hear anything that they feel. People have to truly listen to each other. That's part of communication. If you really love them as they have loved you, show them the respect of having a sincere heart to heart conversation. And by having a conversation, don't call them at work to have it. Don't wait until they have finished a 12 to 16-hour day to have it. Don't wait till they're absolutely exhausted to have it. Choose a time and place that's conducive to a calm and productive discussion. And have it in a loving way. You know, do it in a way that best gives you both the opportunity to remain calm, speak honestly, listen carefully to each other, and work toward understanding and resolution. You may not agree on everything when the conversation's over, but at least you will have given love, truth, and reconciliation a chance. As both children and adults, please try your very best to see your parent as a human being with feelings. Our kids are not the only ones who have feelings. Really try to understand and see your parent. Sometimes you don't see your parent. It's common to see the parent, but not always see the person. You know, our kids may remember the rules, the disagreements, and the times their parents disappointed them. They may never have seen the private tears, the sleepless nights, the financial struggles, the fear or the prayers whispered when nobody else is awake. Many parents hide their struggles because they're trying to protect their children. They keep the lights on, food on the table, and the family moving forward without their children, knowing how frightened, exhausted, or overwhelmed they really are. And sometimes, because the children never see a parent struggle, they grow up believing there wasn't one. Parents get overwhelmed too. Parents struggle with money, with health, with relationships, fear, and disappointment. They carry burdens their children may not know have existed. I heard a responsible parent told one time that they had to earn respect. And I can tell you that type of disrespect cuts deeply. And it was completely dismissive of how that parent spent their life. That parent was a present parent, even when their life sucked. That parent paid all the emergency room visits when it was discovered that in the ER the insurance hadn't been paid for that was promised. That parent was awake during the wee hours of the morning, praying and wondering how food was getting put on the table and bills were getting paid. And that parent was taking care of sick kids. That parent worried, sacrificed, protected, provided, and kept going, even when exhausted, frightened, and unsure of what tomorrow would bring. But somehow, after all of that, that parent had to earn respect. Hmm, does that seem right to you? It's not. Now, does raising a child make a parent perfect? Absolutely not. Does sacrifice mean that a parent can never be questioned or held accountable? Absolutely not. But the years of love, worry, prayer, protection, and sacrifice should mean something. They should not be erased because one disagreement, one misunderstanding, one imperfect moment. And please, sweethearts, never forget the sacrifices of your parents. They sacrificed to pay for football, for dance, for band, for insurance, for basketball, for the mortgage, for the roof under which you laid your head. Be mindful of the great responsibility of a truly loving parent. And respect should go both ways. I respect your right to speak honestly and to be heard, but you must also respect the right to have feelings, to explain myself, and for me to be heard. You may not agree with every decision your parents have made, but please don't look at the people who carried you through the most vulnerable years of your life and act as though they have done nothing worthy of your respect. If you hear nothing else your mama has said to you in this video, remember this. Your parents are human. They make mistakes. Do they make mistakes they regret? Absolutely. But they deserve the same grace, compassion, and opportunity to be heard that you would want for yourself. The Bible says, honor your mother and your father. And that commandment comes with a promise from God so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. God didn't say to honor your parents only when they're perfect, because no parent is perfect. Nobody is perfect. He didn't say to honor them when you agree with them or understand everything they do or every decision they make. He just said honor them. Is there ever a reason to cut people off? Absolutely. Nobody should be abused. You should never put yourself in danger either. Unless those are happening, then before you close that door, sit down, open your heart, and have the conversation. Don't let anger make a permanent decision that love, honesty, and understanding might have been able to heal. Honor your father and your mother. That wasn't merely Mama's suggestion. It was God's commandment, and he attached a promise to it. Now, my sweethearts, I want you to know how proud I am of you. While you are still minors and living under your parents' roof, I see you trying to obey them. I see you trying to listen and honor them and make good choices and be the best you can be for your parents. And sometimes you make mistakes, yes. And sometimes they make mistakes, yes. You may not get everything right, and sometimes you may complain. Sometimes you may have an attitude. Oh, really? Ooh. Sometimes you may make a mistake or fail to understand why your parents make certain decisions. But Mama sees your effort, and I am so proud. Keep trying, keep listening, keep learning, keep respecting, even when you don't completely understand. And parents, if you're hearing me, give your children grace too. Children are learning how to be children. Teenagers are learning how to become adults. Parents are learning how to parent each child through every new stage of life, and grandparents are still learning too. We're all lifelong learners. No matter how old we are still learning. We are all still growing. We are all imperfect, and every one of us needs grace and every one of us needs to give. So give one another that grace. Speak with love. Listen with an open heart. Apologize when you're wrong. Forgive whenever you can safely. And never stop trying to understand one another. I love you, my sweetheart. I love you very much. And I am so proud of you. One day you'll get those parents grown. Baba loves you.